Essentially, my mother was mentally ill, I guess, never diagnosed, and she was single at first, and I was abused very early on. She was married when I was 3, and then first this couple came into our lives. The woman was the cleaning lady, and she and her husband would take me on outings when I was 5. That started. And so that went on for a whole year. I didn't like them. I never wanted to go. I had to. My mother had my brother then. And after a year, they took me. They took me to an event. And it was immediately extreme. It was in a castle. It was horrific. And my mother, I tried to tell her that bad things had happened. I didn't have the language, obviously. It was just around my 6th birthday. And my mother then took over from these pimps. She then started driving me to locations. She would receive a call. She would drive me. I found out later that she was paid. These were in Belgium. For 3 years, I was just trafficked in Belgium. And the head of that, I call it the network, in Belgium was the Minister of National Defense at the time, Paul van den Boeinans. And he used the children to get new people in, and also to give them sometimes to really, through blackmail.
You said he was the national defense. He became a 2-time prime minister later on, right?
Yeah.
So this is before he serves as a prime minister.
It might have been after also. He served twice, so yeah, I'm not sure.
Could have been before and after.
Yeah.
So at this point, when this is happening to you, you know who he is, or you don't know who he is?
No, I didn't know anybody at the moment. At that time, I didn't know who anybody was. I had no idea.
How did you learn about who they were afterwards?
In my adult life.
How, though?
Well, they were very easy to find. Most of them were very easy to find. I would just, if I remembered a name, I just started remembering people thanks to Google, really, just starting to Google and finding them very easily.
Just the faces you would recognize, or what was the method?
Yeah. Looking for their positions. I would know whatever I had. I would type that in, and then usually they would come up right away. That was the surprise. That was the big surprise, really, that I had no idea that they were this prominent when I was a child.
And when this is happening to you at the time, they don't have a name. They're not coming to you with a name. You don't know who it is.
Well, I called him Polo.
Polo,
but his name is Paul. But there's other children that named him something else. So I called him Polo, and then some people I knew their first name. But yes, they're very visible. I've found out from quite a few perpetrators when they die, because then they're in the newspaper and I suddenly see their picture.
So how many of them you knew about when they were alive? You said that's this person, that's that person, when they were alive.
Well, actually, I've recognized quite a few when they died. And that's not only, I think, because I may have remembered certain things, but I may have not remembered who they were specifically to keep myself safe in some strange way. That the healing that then followed, I just understood that it wouldn't have been safe. I wouldn't have been able to keep myself safe, if that makes sense, because the healing process is so involved, and it does. There's certain perpetrators I was very attached to emotionally. I know that may be very hard to understand and believe, but I was very attached emotionally to some of these, which were like fathers.
What was your relationship with your father like?
Well, my biological father I didn't meet until much later. I never met him.
How old were you the first time you met him?
18. And so he didn't recognize me. And then my stepfather was the man who closed his eyes to all my mother's activities. And my brother is his. And I think the reason my brother wasn't trafficked was maybe because he was clearly more interested in my brother. So he just really closed his eyes. But I did try to tell him, and I write that in my book, by the way. I did try to tell him, and he didn't believe me when I was a child. So my mother he was away a lot. He was a cameraman. He was traveling a lot. But when he was there, she would literally get out of their bed, and then I would be ready in my bed, and then she would let the car drive down, just let it without turning on the engine, just to be quiet. And then at the bottom of the driveway, she would start the motor, and she would drive me to events, and then she would pick me up around dawn. That was how it usually worked. And he was asleep in bed, and I thought later maybe he thought she was having affairs. She was doing that also, but he never wondered. And she made up stories also about what had happened to me. For example, at one point she started saying that I was a real tomboy and that I was climbing in trees, which I never did, and I was not a tomboy. But she was saying that because I was covered in bruises. And so that explained it, and then he accepted whatever she said.
When your mom is dropping you off or picking you up, the first time this happened, how was she explaining to you? Like, are you pleading and saying, Mom, please don't take me anymore to a place like this? I don't want to go there. And if you said that, what did she tell you?
Well, I think my mother's a psychopath, that she really had one victim, that was me. So I was an extension that deserved all her wrath. So I have said I wasn't going to go, and she dragged me by my hair one time. But most of the time, because I was her little helper, I was trying to please her more than anything. And then my mother was extremely sadistic.
But did you ever plead and say, Mom, please don't take me today? Please don't take me today?
I said, I once said, I'm not going.
And what did she tell you?
She dragged me by my hair. She would get very anxious before we left. But of course I was going to go. I mean, you understand, children, and you have children. So children are going to do whatever. I was doing everything to please her. I was trying. She was the person I was most attached to. So I was trying to tell myself that she loved me, because you have to know that you're loved as a child. And so I was trying to please her as much as possible. So most of the time I wasn't going to do anything against her. But there was another element, was that with my mother, because she never saw me, she just saw whatever she saw was an extension, something that just was nothing, had nothing to do with me. Because she didn't see me at all, I was receiving more reflection of things that were true about me by these pedophiles in the network, frankly, that were seeing intelligence, or they were seeing beauty. And so at times it was actually more comfortable. It was better to be in the network than to be with my mother, because that constant projection of hers was very difficult to live with.
So this entire time when she's dropping you off and picking you up, you're not controlled. Like, it's, you see it in the movies where the owner has you in a room upstairs and people come in and out and they handle their business and you're away from mom and dad. That's not the case. This is mom is dropping you off and coming and picking you up at dawn.
Yes, so it was different in that way, that my mother was not in the network herself, although she wanted to. She looked up to these people. She would have done anything to belong. But because I think her particular way that her mental illness showed, she was almost too enthusiastic. She would not have been able to keep the secret. So she didn't get in, but it was as if she was envious that I was. It was as if she was sending me in her stead, that she would have wanted that kind of sexual attention. That's really what she wanted all the time, the sexual attention.
How was her relationship with her mom and dad?
She was born in 1939, before the war. Her mother died when she was 5, just after the war. And so her father, whom I did No, he was inappropriate. He did one thing to me that was inappropriate. So
her father, your
her
grandfather.
father. So she grew up in a town in Belgium during the war, in her early years during the war, and then lost her mother at a very early age. And I can only assume that there was sexual abuse happening because that's how she always acted. I have gone through more than 30 years of healing from sexual abuse, all kinds of sexual abuse. And so that journey of healing, which is really, what makes me aware of these things, that's, she acted like someone who was sexually abused and never understood that she was more than that. When you get as a child, there's something that happens when you're a child and you're innocent and you're the light of God and you are innocent, and your innocence is your true self. That's who you are. That's your light. And when you are sexually abused, it's like you feel that you've lost that innocence and that you can never have it back. There's the trauma of sexual abuse is such that, when trauma means you're going to hope, you wish that it was yesterday. If there's a big loss, you just want it to be the day before when this hadn't happened yet. You just want to go back. With sexual abuse, it's like they steal your light. They steal your life. They steal your innocence. And you feel that you've lost it because you're a child and you don't know that you don't deserve this because you assume that you did. And then there are the children that can never get back to that light. And the network and the way that the network operates is all to keep you in the dark. And it's run by people that are not in touch with themselves on that pure level, on that level of, I am light, I am a child of God. And when that's lost, when the abuse gives this message that I have to put out sexually in order to be loved, then you get this message. Then that's how you get validated. That's how you want your attention. And my mother acted like that, like someone who had no connection to herself and who was just constantly trying to get sexual validation from all men.
So you and your mother, from 6 years old till what age was it? Till
11.
11 years old. This is happening when you're saying 6 hours a week. That's the specific number you gave?
I gave that specific number, but it's an approximation. It wasn't every week. And sometimes it wasn't every week, but other times I was gone for the summer of 1972. I was gone 2 months from home. I wasn't home at all.
Where were you at? You were with the traffickers?
I was with the traffickers.
And your mom wasn't there with you?
The first month, no. The first month I was in the United States, being trafficked in the United States by a powerful billionaire who was basically triaging me and training me in his homes.
Who is this?
I'm not saying who that is yet. I have to be careful what I say. I can't just flop these names out. I have to.
Would this be a person we would know?
Definitely, you would know the name.
Alive or dead?
Dead. He was, he was taking me here. I was in the United States, so I was either in his homes, 3 of his homes I spent time in, or I was in the room in the daytime sometimes, in a bedroom, or I was even at a family's near DC for a week, basically parked in a family, nice family that treated me well, probably satanic family, and that were very happy to do a favor for this man. And then I was, after that, was taken to Germany, and I was there for another month in a facility in Heidelberg for what was my mind control training. And this is 1972, and I was 9 years old.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at this society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're going to enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.